Thank you very much, Engineer Bashir Bayo Julari, Group Chief Executive Officer of NTA Limited. Please, let's give him another round of applause. Thank you. In line with commitment to ensure that Africa does not only continue to increase capacity for upstream business, but they always like to remind us, as he prefers to say, we liter of food in our respective vehicles. You need to refine and distribute them. So he is responsible for driving that conversation. Executive Secretary, African Refiners and Distributors Association, ARDA. Please welcome Engineer Anibo.
His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, represented by His Excellency Kashim Shettima, GCON, the Vice President. His Excellency Adama Barrow, President of the Republic of Gambia. His Excellency Teodoro Obang Ngema Mbasolo, President and Head of State of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, represented by Domingo Mba Esono. Senator Henneken Dopobiri, Minister of State for Petroleum Resources Oil. Right Honorable Obong Ekberikpe, Minister of State Petroleum Resources Gas. His Excellency Mamadou Sangbafo Klibai, my host Minister of the ADA Secretariat, Minister of Mines, Petroleum and Energy for the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire. Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, ADA Executive Committee members here present, industry leaders and partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank the organizers of the Nigerian International Energy Summit for inviting me to deliver this goodwill message on behalf of the African Refiners and Distributors Association and its 80 members, comprising refiners, independent marketers, distributors and regulators across our beloved continent. Nigeria actually boasts 10 ARDA members, and our executive committee has 4 key members: the NNPC Limited, NMDPRA, Rain Oil, and the Sahara Group. We also enjoy support from OANDO, ARADEL, and other key supporters. As the ARDA Executive Secretary, a Pan-African citizen, and a proud Nigerian, it gives me great pleasure to participate in today's critical dialogue on global energy, global policy convergence, and energy leadership at this pivotal time in Africa's history. Africa, as the world grapples with a new geopolitical order and associated economic realities, Africa must seize this opportunity to build a robust intra-African domestic oil and gas industry that champions energy security in order to meet our continent's growing future energy demands. Key facts: Africa's energy demand is going to grow about 60% between now and 2050. 1 in 2 people born globally in their period will be African. And Nigeria will have the world's 3rd largest population by 2050. But in reality, most Nigerians will never see a barrel of crude oil. However, Nigerians, and indeed all Africans, must use petroleum products, gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, or LPG to fuel their daily lives. ARDA remains committed to promoting a resilient downstream oil and gas sector focused on delivering cleaner transport and cooking fuels, integrated regional storage and distribution infrastructure, and value-added petrochemical projects, as these will serve as powerful economic multipliers. When Africa refines its crude oil and processes more of our natural gas within the continent, this will not only deepen inter-African regional trade and strengthen our local currencies, but also ensure that our economies are more resilient to global geopolitical shocks. Our association applauds key industry players in Nigeria, like the game-changing Dangote refinery, for its positive impact on supplying West African and international markets, In the Rama 11 Petrochemicals Limited for its plastics and fertilizer production, as well as NNPC Limited, Walter Smith, Aradel, and the Crude Oil Refinery Owners Association of Nigeria for all their key initiatives. I must use this opportunity to congratulate Nigeria for the landmark achievement of formally handing over the African Energy Bank headquarters in Abuja to Apple yesterday. This significant milestone has set the stage for Apple and Afrexim to kick off the much-needed $5 billion financial institution this year and commence the critical role of providing much-needed financing to African oil and gas projects. ARDA is committed to working with its members and key stakeholders to develop a register of bankable energy infrastructure projects that cut across the downstream value chain: refineries, terminals and depots, pipelines, LPG cylinder manufacturing and bottling plants, etc., to be financed by this laudable energy bank. All these projects, of course, must follow critical success factors like effective regulatory frameworks over the investment horizons of investors, adequate project preparation to ascertain scope, cost, and schedule of these projects, incorporation of clear ESG objectives and strategic human capital initiatives to deliver projected business plans. Finally, I must close with a quote from the great Muhammad Ali: "If your dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough." Nigeria must aggressively pursue its goal of becoming a West African refining hub. But this activity must look beyond traditional refining and strategically position the country for providing low-carbon, sustainable energy solutions like green hydrogen, ammonia, and second-generation biofuels, but to support the anticipated immense growth in inter-regional and international trade in coming years. The International Maritime Organization has set goals for net zero emissions for shipping by 2050 and low-carbon alternative fuels like methanol, ammonia, and hydrogen. Nigeria alone receives over 4,000 ships a year. You can do the math. And when you start to add ports like Ghana and Senegal, you see the opportunity. Similarly, the International Civil Aviation Organization has mandated net zero emissions by 2050, and Nigeria has 2 of the top 10 airports by air traffic on the continent. We're not even looking at these yet, and I believe these are opportunities for the continent. Such strategic refinery hub initiatives must be led by the West African Regulators Forum, WAF, whose current chairman is the Authority Chief Executive of Nigeria's NMDPRA. ARDA supports WAF and similar bodies to promote regional integration via harmonized standards, interconnected infrastructure, and open competitive markets to enable sustainable refined products move seamlessly across our borders. Nigeria and indeed Africa are poised to play pivotal leadership roles to add value to its God-given natural resources on the path to ensuring our continent's energy security in coming decades. ARDA looks forward to supporting its Nigerian and Pan-African members and stakeholders going forward and invites everyone to join us for our landmark 20th anniversary 2026 ARDA Week in Cape Town, South Africa in April, with the theme ARDA at 20, Fueling Africa's Industrialization. I'm confident that Nigeria's downstream sector will definitely play a role in securing Africa's energy future, and wish everyone successful deliberations during this year's summit. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Engineer Nebo Krager is one of those NMPC exports to the rest of the world, so there's how NMP is also impacting lives, right? Thank you very much. Please give him one more round of applause. All right. Quickly, let me just quickly acknowledge the presence of the Chairman, House Committee, Petroleum Upstream, Crude Upstream. The Right Honorable Hassan Adodogowa, good morning to you, and thank you for joining us. Okay, back to my agenda. Without any further delay, I go, and this time they are the voice that are ensuring that Africans not only come together, but they come together with a meaningful impact on how this industry is governed and how funds are raised to drive projects here in this industry. They are the African Petroleum Producers Organization, and their Secretary General will be speaking to us at this time. Please welcome with me His Excellency Farid Ghazali.
Your Excellency, Mr. Kashim Shettima, Vice President for the Federal Republic of Nigeria, representative of the President of the Republic Federal of Nigeria. Your Excellency, Mr. President of the Republic of Gambia, Adama Barrow. Your Excellencies, Ministers, dear CEOs of national and international oil companies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure and pride that I stand before you today, here in Abuja for the prestigious Nigerian International Energy Summit 26. I would like to express my deep gratitude to the Nigerian government and its people for their hospitality and the warm welcome extended to us at this event that embodies so well our common term, energy for peace and prosperity. Energy is, without a doubt, the engine of peace and prosperity. It lights our homes, powers our industries, creates jobs, and propels us into a brighter future. For Africa, which is rich in energy resources, the challenge is not only to extract, but to transform these resources into real shared wealth for our populations. Ladies and gentlemen, despite our immense potential, Africa is facing a paradoxical and frustrating reality. We are still exporting about 70% of our crude oil and 45% of our natural gas, losing $15 billion per year, 15 billion per year, in added value that we could generate locally, especially in the midstream and downstream segments. Financing remains the main bottleneck, hindering the development of our strategic projects. More than 150 essential projects, from refineries to pipelines such as the AKK pipeline to gas infrastructure, remain blocked. What for? Because the cost of financing in Africa is 15–20% compared to only 4 to 6% in Asia. This disparity is unacceptable and slows down our progress. In addition, the fragmentation of our energy financial ecosystem is a challenge. Our 18 national oil companies, NOCs, in APO often operate in isolation, without a common stock exchange, which severely limits regional synergies and our collective ability to attract massive capital. Faced with this emergency, APO has worked tirelessly to forge a resolutely African and pragmatic solution, which is called the African Energy Bank. I am proud to announce that the African Energy Bank, which is scheduled to launch here in Abuja in the first half of 26, is much more than just a financial institution. It is a Pan-African platform for the exchange of equipment, energy services, and above all, a catalyst for innovative financing to support structuring African energy projects. Because I think it's time to produce what we are consuming and to consume what we are producing. Thank you. The Africa Energy Bank is designed to unlock the 200 billion needed for our midstream downstream project by 2030. And beyond, how are you going to deal with that? Immediate liquidity. The Africa Energy Bank will allow the listing of shares of our how it is called, the society, the national companies and flagship projects such as the Dangote refinery or the Akaka pipeline, for example. Our goal is to raise $15 billion in just 3 years with this increased liquidity. Competitive regional pricing. The Africa Energy Bank will unify intra-African pricing for gas and oil, allowing our member countries to achieve savings of up to 30% on their energy imports, a potential gain of $1.4 billion for Africa. Direct access to investors. The Africa Energy Bank will connect our certified projects to the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, such as IDAA and PIF, as well as to capital markets with structured green bonds and public-private partnerships, PPPs. Excellencies, Minister, dear delegates, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present you our ambitious roadmap for the Africa Energy Bank, which is divided in 3 phases. Phase 1, which, as I said, in the first half of 26, launch the African Energy Bank platform with 10 pilot projects involving countries such as Nigeria, Angola, Libya. APO certification, I repeat, APO certification and integration of IOCs such as Shell or ENI. Phase 2, in 27, we plan to start a regional gas oil trading, integrating the principle of the Brazzaville Declaration for the 50% local content. Phase 3, reaching the 2030. Africa Energy Bank will be a true African financial hub with $200 billion mobilized to support the gas transition and energy transformation of our continent. The quantified benefits speak for themselves. Project financing for billions of dollars, regional saving of around 30% of import costs, 500,000 direct jobs created in the local midstream, attractiveness for sovereign wealth funds and global investors. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not mistaken. We are not mistaken if we affirm that Africa has already proven its ability to achieve great things. The NCDMB in Nigeria, for example, with its $5 billion in local contract through partnership with IOCs, is an aspiring model for local contracts through partnership with IOCs, is an inspiring model of local content. The realization of large projects such as the Dangote refinery, which was able to attract private capital once de-risked, are concrete proof that our project can and will attract local and international investors if we offer them the right framework. Today from Abuja, the capital of the country that will host the Bank Africa Energy, thanks to the Republic Federal of Nigeria, I propose to seal an Abuja Pact, a collective commitment by Nigeria and several other APO members countries to launch and make the Africa Energy Bank full operational by mid-26. Thank you. This pact will align perfectly with the discussion we will have here at NIS 26 on local content and regional gas diplomacy. It is by joining forces, pooling our resources, and embracing this shared vision that APO and Nigeria can assert themselves as undisputed leaders in Africa energy financing. Together, let us turn energy into a real lever for peace and prosperity for all Africa. Let us make the Africa Energy Bank the engine for our energy sovereignty and economic development. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So Farid Ghazali, Secretary General of African Petroleum Producers Organization, APO, telling us what they're doing to help Africa get to her desired destination. Please, another round of applause for His Excellency. Okay, we've been nearing the completion of a number of pipelines across our midstream space. And I'd like to acknowledge the committee that oversees that and many more in the downstream petroleum resources. The chairman is here, Honorable Prince Henry Odiano-Okoje. Very good morning to you, Honorable, and welcome to this event. Okay, onwards. I continue now to another address, and this time we're going to Gas Exporting Countries Forum. I was prepping to receive this address virtually, but I just got a chat a few minutes ago to say I am here in person to take this address. A brand new Secretary General of the Forum and our very own expatriate, if you like, now to the world. Please welcome His Excellency, Dr. Philip Michel Bila.
Thank you very much, Richmond. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to adopt the prior established protocols in order to help us save time. It is a profound honor for me to stand here and to address you today at the NIAS 2026. This moment is deeply personal for me, as it is the first public address in Nigeria since I assumed office as the Secretary General of the GECF. And because it is coming at this particular time that is extremely critical for Nigeria, because I believe that today Nigeria stands at the forefront of Africa's gas story. You cannot tell the African gas story without Nigeria. And there's a lot that is happening and unfolding. But let me start with a little bit about the Gas Exporting Countries Forum. It is a forum that unites 20 member countries that represent 70% of the world's proven natural gas reserves. It also represents about half of the world's LNG market or exports. And Nigeria is a pioneer member of the GECF and has always helped to shape this organization into what it is today. And today, we hold not only the position of Secretary General, but also the rotating presidency of the GECF for the year 2026. I therefore would like to recognize His Excellency, our own Honorable Minister of State for Gas, Epo, who is also the president of the ministerial meeting of the GECF for this year. Global energy demand has escalated from about 40 exajoules in the 18th century to about 635 exajoules as at 2024. This has enabled unprecedented industrialization and improvements in living standards. And yet, fossil fuels continue to dominate this energy mix. It is important to note, however, that at the same time, 700 million people still lack access to electricity, and an even bigger number lack access to clean cooking. This defines the central question of our era, especially as participants in the oil and gas sector. And the question is, how do we provide more and cleaner energy, but for all? This question is even more pertinent in Africa, where demographics will add another 1 billion people to the population by 2050, taking us to about 2.5 billion This will be the fastest growing region in terms of population over the next 25 years. The answer to that question is not in rehashing what we have always done and what has gotten us here. The answer lies in thinking differently. And I want to throw a challenge to say that if you're a business, a parastatal, a ministry, whatever it is that you do, if in your long-term planning you have not factored in the 400 million Nigerians that will be in this country in another 25 years, you have to go back to the drawing board. And if your business or activity covers Africa and you're not thinking about the 2.5 billion, you need to go back to the drawing board. Because all of us are responsible not just to meet the needs of today, but to ensure that the population of tomorrow, that their needs are also met. And it's not just the numbers that are changing, but the per capita consumption of energy of individuals is also changing. And especially in places where people are rising out of poverty and increasing numbers are getting into the middle class. And so, as a nation, we have to think about how we are going to provide health care for 400 million people, education, and not just education as we've always done it, because the skill sets that will be needed will be completely different. How will we provide services, infrastructure? But I want to focus on energy. Natural gas has demonstrated remarkable resilience as a critical cornerstone of the current and future energy mix, even amid recent crises. In fact, the crises have shown exactly what the importance of natural gas is, for those who might have been forgetting. When we think about the developments with regards to the energy mix in general, you will find that over the long term, GCF analysis shows that global primary energy demand will rise by nearly 20% by 2050, driven by strong economic growth and the population increase. But meeting this demand securely, affordably, and sustainably is one of the significant challenges of this century and of leaders like ourselves. Natural gas stands at the center of this challenge as the cleanest hydrocarbon. Its share of global primary energy is expected to rise from about 23% today to about 26% by 2050. But achieving this will require significant investment, as more than 80% of future supply comes from fields that are not yet producing today. And those that are familiar with me know how I keep talking about the untapped resources that we have as a country in Nigeria's deep water. We have gas in the deep water that we have not yet tapped. For Africa, the implications are profound. The continent's energy consumption per capita is barely 1/3 of the global average. While more than 600 million Africans still lack access to electricity, GCF analysis indicates that Africa's total energy consumption must at least triple by 2050 to place the continent on a genuine path out of energy poverty. This requires a structural transformation. Natural gas is central to this transformation. Whether it is converted into electricity, whether it is used for fertilizer production to strengthen food security, whether it is scaling up LPG production in order to provide clean cooking, whatever it is, we must deploy the resource that we have been blessed with in order to transform our national economy and the lives of our people. Nigeria is already demonstrating leadership. The PIA, the Decade of Gas, most recently NNPC's Gas Master Plan, and so on and so forth. And all of these are steps that we are making in the right direction. I would like to say, in conclusion, that at the GECF we are fully committed to working with Nigeria and other African countries to uphold the right to development, advance a just and orderly energy transition, and ensure equitable participation in global gas and energy markets. Together, we can ensure that Africa's vast gas resources become a powerful engine for energy access, industrialization, and sustainable growth. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Dr. Philip Michel Bila, Secretary General, Gas Exporting Countries Forum, giving us their view and perspective. Onwards now to the view and perspective of the World Energy Council, as I welcome their chairman for Africa, His Excellency Dr. Omar Farouk Ibrahim.
Lip service, you started by intimidating us that we don't have much time, so I'll just speak off the cuff. Your Excellency, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President of the Federal Republic and Commander-in-Chief, ably represented by His Excellency Kashim Shettima, the Vice President of the Federal Republic, Your Excellency Adama Barrow, President of the Gambia, Your Excellency Theodore Mbasogo, President of the Equatorial Guinea, represented, Excellencies, Ministers of the Federal Republic, as well as visiting ministers, legislators, captains of the industry, ladies and gentlemen. Last year, when I stood to speak here as Secretary General of the African Petroleum Producers Organization, I had lamented the fact that when I went to all African countries where energy events take place, whether it is Cairo, Algeria, Libya, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Namibia, Mozambique, the presidents of those countries make sure that they are there in person. The symbolism of that is that you send a message that at the highest level, that industry has support. That message is more critical than all the jamborees we do going around the world trying to attract so-called foreign investors. I had passed the message that our president should please symbolically show his face so that the investors will say that, yes, this is exactly what the president thinks. I want to say, or I want to thank President Bola Ahmed Tinubu today, for though he hasn't been able to come, he has sent his younger brother, the Vice President, to represent him. Prosperity, securing our shared future. As I sat there hearing from Vite Falade to Bayo to Farid, Anibo, I was asking myself, if we think this way, why are we where we are today, 70 years after independence, not just of Nigeria, but generally in Africa? The reason, as I see it, Excellency, is that we have adopted something in the 60s and have refused to sit back and review it critically and see whether or not it is helping our continent. When we came into the oil and gas industry, we were made to believe that our oil and gas is meant for export. It's like export commodity. We've been brainwashed into believing that energy is so expensive and we are so poor, so we need to sell it to get the almighty dollar with which to keep importing what ideally with our energy, if we use it here, we'll be able to do by ourselves. As I heard from previous speakers, we need to do more of this, more of that. I want to say, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that incrementalism will not get Africa out of poverty. Everybody here is an elite. I don't think that we truly understand or reflect poverty. Go to the villages. You are politicians, most of you, so you know. But there's a big difference between when you feel something and when you see something. Incrementalism will not get Africa out of where we are today. We need a complete paradigm shift. I heard Falade say that indirectly. I heard Bayo also say that indirectly. I heard Farid talk about we need to produce what you eat and eat what you produce. Farid, excellent. I think you're speaking to the wrong audience here, because 90% of the audience here cannot do with imported food, imported clothes, imported everything. And for as long as we have that mentality, we will continue to want to export our energy in order to get the forex with which to buy things that are frivolous. I want to suggest, and General Musa is here, you can't have peace without energy. You can't have prosperity without energy. And there's no shared future without energy. Let us resolve that our priority as a continent is that our energy is for us first. And if we have excess, we can export it. It's not going to be easy because our leaders at the very top and even the aspiring leaders have not accepted that we need to make the necessary sacrifice for 5 to 10 or 15 years so that our continent will be different. For as long as we sit here to think that our salvation as a continent lies in getting funds from Europe or America in order to develop our people, we are wrong. We have the energy. Let's use it for ourselves. It won't be easy, but I believe that in the end, that is where our salvation lies. Mr. President, please pass my message to the President. We are happy he has sent his younger brother to represent him. Next year, he should try and come himself. I thank you.
If last year you prophesied a presidential presence, we got 3 presidents. Now that you are prophesying again, I don't know that we'll get 6 next year. But anyways, thank you very much. Thank you. Please give him another round of applause. Okay, over now to the 2 ministerial addresses, then a 3 minutes from the Senate President and Chairman of National Assembly, of course, that covers National Assembly, and then the President of Equatorial Guinea, then the President of Gambia, then the President of Nigeria, then group photographs, then we close this opening ceremony. Just giving you a quick rundown of what is to come. Welcome with me now. We've listened to the Secretary General. We're now listening to the President of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, who just flew in from Doha this morning to join us. Please welcome with me His Excellency, the Right Honorable Obogemeng Ekperikpe Ekpo, PhD, for his address.
Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, hereby represented by a dependable Deputy or Vice President, Kashim Shettima, our own, the President of Gambia, the representative of the President of Equatorial Guinea, the President of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, distinguished Senator Gospel Bodo, hereby represented. Other distinguished senators here present, honorable members, my dear brother, the Minister of State Petroleum Resources Oil, distinguished Senator Henneken Lukbobri, other ministers that are here and visiting ministers. I salute the Secretary General of Gas Exporting Countries Forum who flew in this morning from Doha. This is patriotism, and I really salute that, Dr. Philip. The GCEO, Permanent Secretary, CCE, the critical stakeholders in this very critical industry. Today is a great day in the history of our country, Nigeria. And we are having, since my assumption of office, we are having in attendance presidents from other countries coming to identify with us. It is a very significant moment. Thank you very much, Mr. President. It is both an honor and privilege to address this distinguished gathering at the 9th edition of the Nigeria International Energy Summit. Over the years, NIS has truly evolved to be more than a conference. It has become a trusted platform for dialogue, cooperation, innovation, and increasingly, the hope for a better tomorrow, for peace building through energy collaboration. I commend the organizers for sustaining this summit as a forum where policy meets investment and where shared challenges are transformed into collective solutions. The theme of this year's summit, Energy for Peace, Prosperity, Securing Our Shared Future, is both timely and compelling. Across Africa and the wider global community, energy is no longer viewed solely as commodity. It is recognized as a strategic enabler of stability, economic growth, social inclusion, and long-term resilience. Nigeria's energy strategy is firmly anchored within the realities of the global energy transition and Africa's unique development imperatives. While the world accelerates towards low-carbon systems, our continents continue to grapple with energy poverty, industrial underdevelopment, and limited access to reliable power. These realities compel us to pursue a transition that is not only green, but also just, inclusive, and pragmatic. Nigeria is therefore advancing an energy pathway that balances climate responsibility with development needs, leveraging our abundant natural gas resources to power industries, expand access, and create jobs. This journey is not one that government can undertake alone. I acknowledge the vital contributions of the federal and the state governments, international investors, indigenous and multinational energy companies, financial institutions, host communities, civil societies, organizations, and our development partners. Your collaboration remains essential to building an energy system that delivers prosperity while sustaining peace. Natural gas remains central to Nigeria's energy future. It is our most abundant hydrocarbon resource and our most practical instrument for economic transformation. Gas enables reliable power generation, underpins industrial growth, supports cleaner cooking solutions. Through gas, we are creating jobs, strengthening value chains, reducing energy poverty, and positioning Nigeria as a regional energy hub. Over the past year, Nigeria's gas sector has recorded measurable and encouraging progress. In 2025, our gas production sustained a clear upward trajectory, with average daily output reaching approximately 7.5 to 7.6 billion standard cubic feet per day. Notably, domestic gas supply exceeded 2 billion standard cubic feet per day for the first time, a historic milestone that underscores our commitment to energy access, industrial growth, and economic transformation. This increased domestic availability has translated into more reliable gas supply for power generation, industries, and households. We have also made meaningful gains in efficiency. Gas flaring level declined to some of the lowest recorded in recent years, reflecting steady progress towards our zero routine gas flaring by 2030 commitment and reinforcing Nigeria's environmental responsibility. Investors' confidence has strengthened, evidenced by final investment decision in key upstream gas projects, unlocking new volumes and mobilizing capitals. This development has been supported by improved regulatory clarity under the Petroleum Industry Act, kudos to National Assembly, which continues to enhance transparency and governance. Across the midstream and downstream pipeline networks, processing facilities, and gas-to-power initiative has expanded, improving connectivity and utilization. Strategic prioritization of the domestic market has supported jobs, cleaner cooking, and industrial stability. Looking ahead, we remain firmly committed to scaling production towards 12 billion standard cubic feet per day, as charged by Mr. President, positioning gas as the cornerstone of Nigeria's energy security and prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, under the President Bola Ahmed Renewed Hope agenda, government policy prioritizes the expansion of gas infrastructure for domestic use, while strengthening Nigeria's position in regional and global export markets. We are indeed facilitating investment in gas processing, storage, and distribution, while accelerating gas-to-power projects that directly address energy poverty and industrial competitiveness. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria's energy future is inseparable from peace. partnership, and shared responsibility. We are committed to building an energy system that powers prosperity, strengthens stability, and supports regional integration. Mr. President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I invite all stakeholders present today to move beyond dialogue to decisive actions, working together to implement these priorities and secure a future where energy truly serves as a foundation for peace and prosperity. Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Right Honorable Bagimekuripe Ekpo, PhD, Honorable Minister of Supreme Resources for Gas. And switching gears from him, I'm still staying with the ministry as I now welcome His Excellency, the distinguished Senator Heineken Lupubri, PhD, the Honorable Minister of Supreme Resources for Oil. Please welcome his brother minister for his own ministerial remarks.
Your Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFRO, President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, here very ably represented by His Excellency, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON, Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Your Excellency, the President of Equatorial Guinea here represented, Your Excellency, the Senate President, please permit me to at this point abridge the protocol to say distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me first of all express our very profound gratitude to His Excellency, the President of the Gambia, who flew in yesterday and then still found time to dine with us yesterday evening, and then, he's also here this morning. When we invited His Excellency, the President of the Gambia, to honor us, in this event, we're not sure whether you'll be able to come. So we're monitoring whether you'll be able to come. And so we're in touch with, Gambia to see when he will board the aircraft. It was when he boarded the aircraft that we knew that he was going to come. Why am I saying that we should, as Nigerians, express gratitude to him is because when we invited him, he said, presidents are very busy. Presidents do not have time, but you have to create the time. And so he said, I have very, very, important matters to attend to in the Gambia, but I'm going to reschedule them so that I can attend this event in Nigeria. And that is why I am particularly, grateful to Your Excellency for please honoring Nigeria with your presence, and we cannot take that, for granted. Thank you very much. Let me also thank the President of Equatorial Guinea, who in writing confirmed that he was going to be here. But for some official commitments, he sent a minister to represent him for the first time. And so I think that also deserves, a gratitude in our country. Having said that, let me start by saying that this gathering should be seen as being more than a conference. It is actually a call to action, to make energy poverty a chapter of our past, and to forge an environment where business doesn't just thrive in Africa, but survives in Africa. Let me first of all talk about, Nigeria, and then situate it in the broader African energy story. Nigeria possesses enormous hydrocarbon endowments, no doubt about that. We also have a geography that combines deep water, shallow water, and onshore acreages, which is the fact. But resource richness alone is not enough. What makes Nigeria now different is the leadership, the stable, legal, regulatory, financial, and structural transformation that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government is delivering to Nigerians. Because investment ready means more than just having reserves. It means having clarity, predictability, efficiency, incentives, and proper alignments. When this government came into office in 2023, this sector was struggling. Production was low, and there was enormous capital flight. Investments were stalled, and for over a decade, there was no major investment at all. But investors, when I engaged them, said we were very cautious because we were not sure where this government was going to go. And that confidence was lacking. And you and I know that that was actually a real situation that we met when this government came into office. But painstaking implementation of the PIA, which gives investors a stable fiscal framework, clearer licensing, stronger regulation, protection for host communities, local content, provisions, and ensuring that contracts and terms of contracts are kept sacrosanct. We made moves to reduce the cost of, upstream operations through executive orders. There were tax reliefs, tax credits that were given, to companies in the industry. We also tried to lower operating costs as a country, because the story has always been that our operating cost is always even higher than countries that are at war, which wasn't acceptable. But all those things are coming down now. You recall that we launched a project, 1 million barrels in 2024. In less than a year, the story changed. When we came, we were doing, less than 1 million barrels. Today, we're doing between 1.7 million barrels and 1.8 million barrels, inclusive of condensate. The last report from NGPRC and the CC is here, is that we did 1,700,000 and something million barrels per day, as at the report of last week. So the situation had changed by 70% from the time we met when we came, which was less than 1 million barrels when I became Minister of State in charge of oil. This is a very, very tremendous achievement that, cannot be swept under the carpet. We increased, after the launch of that project, 1 million barrels, we have increased production by over 300,000 barrels per day. As of July 2025, we had increased production by about 300,000 barrels per day. The number of active rigs, Mr. President, when we came was about 14, but today we have exceeded 60. That is evidence of strong activity and strong investments happening in the oil sector. These are signs that the reforms, we are implementing are working. These are also evidence that the idle assets are being activated and existing assets are being optimized. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that, as I said earlier, there was no investment for almost 10 years. One of the reasons why investment didn't come, as I said, was because there was no certainty as to a legal, regulatory framework. But following the reforms of this government and following major decisions that were taken by this government in relation to divestments, investments started flowing in. You will recall the Shell's $5 billion Bonga project. You also recall the Obeta $550 million dollar project by Total. You also recall the global CEO of Shell, who came to Nigeria in January and announced a commitment of a $20 billion investment. Mr. President, in the year 2025 too, we had field development plans that were worth about $18.2 billion. That will unlock 1.4 billion barrels of crude oil. Let me not forget the investment made by Total in their Project Panther, worth $1.8 billion. Mr. President, the point that is important here is that when there's a government that has clear pathway to unlocking our potentials, we can always get there with the cooperation of all stakeholders. Mr. President, between 2024 and 2025, 7 major investment decisions were made in Africa. 4 were in Nigeria. Out of the 7 major FIDs, 4 were in Nigeria. And we are very proud, and we are willing to maintain that trajectory. So, President, this didn't happen by accident. It was a result of, painful and steady work with all stakeholders, with policy clarity, and better governance. These are not rhetorics, but proofs that Nigeria is once again the preferred investment destination for those who want to invest in oil and gas. Investment climate in Nigeria allows for free movement of capital. Before we came, the IOCs will always come to me that we will not invest unless you do what is done globally, by allowing us to invest at will and also divest at will. And when we enabled the divestment, and before this government came, the divestment in relation to, ExxonMobil selling their assets to Seplat was stalled for over 2 years. And when Shell wanted to sell to Renaissance, it was a very, very difficult decision. There was a lot of opposition. People came with different proposals that were never going to be workable. With the President, I'm happy to say that that major decision unlocked the investments that we're seeing today. It is a global practice that if a Nigerian goes to invest in America and when he wants to divest, he should be allowed to divest. No matter the campaign we make to any part of the world, if we do not adopt that global practice, nobody will come and invest in Nigeria. It's a global practice. The President, it is important to note here that when the divestment decision was going to be taken, one of the things we were confronted was whether those Nigerian companies that were acquiring them will be able to run them effectively. I'm happy to announce that Shell, that sold to Renaissance had increased production by over 100%. The truth is that we have some of the best in the world. Those who are running these Nigerian companies were trained by the IOCs. The glory of these IOCs can't be written without those who are running the Nigerian companies that acquired these assets. We have some of the best in the world, and as a government, we're giving them the best that we can to ensure that this trajectory is maintained. Mr. President, it's important to state here that we're not dealing with the upstream alone. We're also strengthening our refining and downstream capacity. The federal government under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, took major decision to remove fuel subsidy. A decision that not even military heads of state could take. But the President took that bold decision that has unlocked the mainstream and downstream sector. Today, every day we hear a FAC meeting, we hear, the 3 tiers of government sharing trillions of naira. Before now, the highest they've shared was maybe 500 million, 400 million, the highest could be 600 million. But today, we have trillions of naira that have been freed based on the removal of subsidy. And all over the world, it is businessmen that can actually run businesses well. All over the world, if you want to subsidize, you cannot subsidize consumption effectively. You may subsidize production, but you may not be able to subsidize consumption very well. We were practically subsidizing the pockets of a lot of people. And when that was removed, all of us can now see the amount of money that's available for the different tiers of government, for different projects. It's also important for me to commend people like Dangote who have made very significant investment in Nigeria. It's also important for me to commend BUA and other refiners who are making investments in the midstream and downstream sector. I must also commend the cooperation that we have enjoyed from Pengasson, from Nupeng, from Petran, from Ipman, from DAPMAN, all stakeholders, NATO, all of them have partnered with us to enable us get to where we are today in terms of results. The President, we've also liberalized the licensing system. Before now, approvals depend on knowing the minister. But under this administration, you don't need to know the minister. The criteria is compliance and transparency. Most people don't want to comply, but they believe that through their long legs, they can get things sorted out. Under this government, the strict application of the rules is the criteria. And because that has changed, Your Excellency, there are so many applications for modular refineries that will employ our people, that will be able to service, what is needed in this country. The President also, we launched what we call the West African Reference Market, our equivalent of European reference market. The vision is clear. The vision is for Nigeria to become the refining hub of the Gulf of Guinea. Recognizing that FID is just the start of a project, we noticed that there was a gap in the service sector. Because some people who were in government before we came misapplied a local content act. They promoted what we call middlemanism. They promoted briefcase companies. That is also responsible for our cost of projects. Your Excellency, you recall that most times, in fact, I'm being embarrassed, when I'm asked that why is our cost prohibitive? One of the reasons is because somebody felt that by Section 3 of the local contract, you need to give it to, a Nigerian who will now go and give it to the big boys. He has added his own. The big boy will add his own. At the end of the day, our project became the most expensive in the world. But that is also changed based on executive orders that have been issued by Mr. President. We have engaged EPC companies to come back then so that there will be competition. Instead of monopoly, there is now competition so that EPC companies can now come back and then we can have the best of pricing. This afternoon, we have another session with them on the sidelines. Mr. President, we do not fold our arms. We leverage on executive orders to ensure that, we do things in line with best practices. We're also creating an environment where they can exist side by side. Our own Nigerian companies, that I say briefcase companies, not all of them are briefcase companies. Those companies can exist side by side with the big EPC companies that can do deep offshore work while they do shallow water and onshore matters. The President, as part of what we want to offer to Nigeria, we try to create institutions that can build our capacity. PTDF used to send people abroad for scholarship. But we try to change it by establishing a university. The university is ready in Kaduna. There's also a globally, recognized training center in Port Harcourt that will train our people that will be needed to service this industry. The President, as I wind down, it's important for me to state that Africa imported about 120 billion worth of hydrocarbon in the year 2025. This staggering capital, could have very well been saved. And that's one of the reasons why we launched the West African Reference Market, so that if Dangote and others are able to, capture just 20% of that market, the story will be a different story. Your Excellency, the core idea is this. If African countries come together and solve the most fundamental problem, which is the financing problem, what has been weaponized against Africa is access to finance. And I'm very happy to announce to Your Excellency that yesterday we handed over the building that has been fully furnished, to Apple and Afro-Exim Bank. So the ball is now in the court of Apple and Afro-Exim Bank to quickly launch this bank so that Nigerians and Africans will have access to the financing that is needed to finance the oil and gas sector. It's not important for me to mention that Nigeria has met all obligations. We have in fact overpaid. We have overpaid what ordinarily would have paid. Your Excellency, let me conclude by saying that the discussion today is no more about energy transition, it's about energy mix. And that is why in Nigeria we are doing a new bid round, and we are using the opportunity to call on everybody to please participate in that bid round. Those who spoke about energy transition were the International Energy Agency of the United Nations that talked about net zero in 2021. But the 2025 report of the same agency says that the world needs to invest a minimum of $700 billion per annum on the same fossil fuel, on the same oil and gas. That shows that they have changed the discussion from energy transition to energy mix. So nobody in Nigeria should be talking about energy transition. Talk about mix. We have to use all the resources God has given to us, develop them for the benefit of our own people. Your Excellency, let me conclude by saying that Nigeria's petroleum sector is being rewritten by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The new chapter is about bold partnerships, transformative projects, and shared prosperity. These reforms are in place, the opportunities are real, and the leadership is committed to it. So as I invite all of you, please come to Nigeria to build with us, profit with us, don't be a distant investor, but a co-architect of a future where Africa's largest producer will solve the problems of energy poverty in Africa, for the people for the benefit of Nigerians and also for the benefits of Africa. Thank you, and may God bless all of us.
Thank you very much, distinguished Senator Heineken Lupobri, Honorable Minister of Supreme Resources. Onwards now, a quick stop.